All right, real world situations with cylinders. Okay, so in this case, both chip containers are cylinders. So which can of chips is a better value if both of the containers cost the same? So really, which one am I going to get more chips in if they cost the same? I want more for my money. So basically, I have to find the volume of each. So the volume of a cylinder is pi times the radius squared times height. So realize the radius here is going to be 5 because all the way across is 10. And the volume of this one is going to be pi times half of 7, right, because 7's all the way across, 3.5 squared times 20. So this one's 785.4. This is 769.7 cubic centimeters on each of these. So which one is the better value? All right, so here we want to find the height of the building if the volume is 130 cubic miles and the radius is 2 miles, round to the nearest tenth. So realize this time I'm not asking you to find volume. I've given you the volume right here. Okay, 130 cubic miles, and I've given you the radius. So realize in a cylinder, the volume is equal to pi times radius squared times height. So if I've given you volume, pi is just a number. I've given you the radius. The only variable we don't know in this equation is h. So all we have to do is plug in what we know and solve for a variable. We've been solving equations all year long. So our volume is 130, so that goes in for v here. Remember, pi is just a number. Radius is 2 times my height. Okay, so right now I'm going to square this 2 here. 130 is equal to pi times 4 times height. Okay, and there's many different ways to solve for h here, and the more you do these types of problems, the more you're going to develop which way you like to solve problems better. So one way is to multiply pi times 4 right now. So on my calculator, I could go pi times 4. And I could simplify this to become 12.57 times height. And then to solve for h, my last step would be to divide by this 12.57. So 130 divided by 12.57 gives me 10.3 miles is equal to h. Okay. Now, when I solve this problem, I actually do it pretty much in one step on my calculator. And I'm going to show you how. So again, completely up to you. And there are in-betweens, working it all out like this or doing it in one step. So your first step's still going to be to fill in the formula with what we know. Right? These steps here are the same. Now I know this pi times 2 squared is all going to be just simplified to a number. So knowing this number, knowing this 12.57 isn't really important, right? Because I know this is all some number. So if I divide by pi times 2 squared, it's going to cancel because this represents a number divided by that same number is going to give me 1h. But if I do that on this side, I have to do that on the other side. The thing with doing this on your calculator is you need to put this in parentheses to make sure you were dividing 130 by this entire number, not just pi. Okay, so we have to do 130 divided by parentheses pi times 2 squared parentheses gives me 10.34. Or, yeah, 10.3 miles. Okay, so I set up the problem, do that one step of division to get my answer. Totally up to you. Some of you might like this visual breakdown. All right? So, similar problem where I'm asking you to find the height of this soup can. So, pause the video and try this one on your own. Okay, so volume is pi r squared times height. That's the formula we're using. Okay, I like to write out the formula because once you learn the other formulas that we'll learn in this unit, it's very easy to use the wrong one. So make sure you write that correct formula down, then fill in what we know. So volume's 35, pi times my radius. Now notice I gave you diameter. So to get the radius, we have to cut that in half, which is 1.5. And we are solving for height. So at this point, remember there's two different ways. So I'm going to do it both ways in this example again. So the way I like to do it is the second way because it's really fast. I know this pi times 1.5 is a number. I want to divide by that same number to get this to cancel. So I have to do that on the other side. So doing that in parentheses. Right, we need to put this in parentheses in our calculator. 4.95, that rounds up to 5. So I get my height to be 5 inches. Okay, doing it the other way, you're going to times that pi and 1.5 squared together to get approximately 7. If you want to keep that 7.06, that's up to you, or maybe 0.7. There, actually, times height, divide 7.07 on both sides to cancel that. 35 divided by 7.07 gives me, again, same thing, rounds up to be 5 inches. Good. All right, so real quick, just looking at the question in here, I'm asking you what the radius is. So before we were finding height, now we're finding radius, a different variable that we're going to be missing. So I want you to pause and try this one. It is a little different. If you get stuck, go ahead and play the video for a little guidance. All right, so we're still dealing with this cylindrical glass. So volume is equal to pi times radius squared times height. Okay, my volume here is 20 cubic centimeters. We are trying to find radius, but I give you the height to be 2.5. Now when we're solving this problem, realize this is all multiplication here. Pi times r squared times 2.5. So this is all multiplication. So you can still do this step where you multiply pi and 2.5 together to get this one number. So pi times 2.5 gives me 7.85, and then I still have my r squared here. So to get r alone, the next step is going to be to divide by that 7.85 on both sides. Okay, whatever we do to one side, we have to do to the other. That gives me 2.55 is equal to r squared. Now this is when we have to think back to our Pythagorean theorem unit. How do I undo the fact that r was squared to get r? Right? Because that's not the radius, that's the radius squared. So to undo that, we take the square root. So our radius is approximately 1.6 centimeters. Okay. So again, that's the way that you're kind of working it out, which most of you will probably do it this way because you kind of keep your work nice and organized. You see what's going on. Those of you who are a little bit more visual, actually, I'll just jump right here. So we filled in what we know. We're solving for r. So realizing that we're going to have to divide by this number eventually, which we know comes from pi and 2.5, I can divide by pi and 2.5 to cancel those in one step. Remember, we will need those parentheses, though, in our calculator. So 20 divided by pi times 2.5 in parentheses gives us that 2.55 is equal to r squared. Again, same last step is going to be to square root, and we get 1.6. So it's just skipping one step in between. Okay, so go ahead and pause the video and try to find the radius of this problem. So again, our formula's volume is equal to pi times radius squared times height. I give you our volume to be 2,036 cubic inches. We are trying to find our radius, so that just stays r, and our height is 18. Okay, so I'll do this one just the longer way. Realize you can do it the shorter way. So from here, I'm going to draw my brick wall to keep things separated. I'm going to combine pi and 18. Right, so that means I'm multiplying pi by 18, which gives me 56.5 r squared. We need to get rid of the coefficient. Gives us 36 is equal to r squared. Remember, we want the radius, so take the square root, which is going to be 6 inches.